Meowdy everyone, welcome back to another video. My name is Saphwyn, the silly Nico VTuber. If you do not know who I am, I stream over on Twitch. I make a lot of react content. I react to anything I find cool, and I love animals. So today we'll be reacting to why honey badgers don't fear God or lions. This is by Casual Geographic. I love Casual Geographic. I think he does an excellent job in all his videos. So on that note, let's dig in. Boom. Why? Okay. Why would you be that close to a honey badger? I feel like I would never trust a honey badger. I know they're cute, and I know maybe they could be docile if you, like, you know, you grew up around them, grew one up from like a pup or whatever, but I would still never, I don't think, trust the honey badger around my face.
Honey badgers are the most disrespectful force in nature, and that's putting them over orcas. Because at least when an orca shot puts a seal, you can argue it's just testing a new hunting strategy. But honey
orcas just be limit testing the ocean, actually.
Why would a honey badger test an oryx 10 times its size, get launched only to immediately do it again? Because honey badgers come into the world deciding they don't want peace, they want problems. They don't want compromise, they seek conflict. If orcas are homicidal sea Oreos, then honey badgers are double stuffed with audacity.
An orca is a homicidal sea Oreo. Holy moly.
If I ever make a list of the top 5 animals with black Air Force energy, honey badgers would be a first ballot choice. But like any kid that acts out in school, to really understand just what makes a honey badger such a one-man hate campaign, you gotta look at its family. When you talk about mammalian carnivores, you can really simplify it into 2 classes, Team Cat and Team Dog. Yeah. Team Cat would be feliform, which translates to cat-like carnivores, which would obviously include wild cats, but also cats that aren't really cats.
Isn't like a honey badger more like a rodent? Like, what's the other word for them? Like, I guess Team Cat, Team Dog, that can, you know what?
Mongooses.
I guess if you look at it, because it would be similar to like a mongoose slash ferret slash mink, I would say. Even like a skunk maybe, but... Like
the meerkat and a bunch of other animals
they would be classified, I guess. If you look at it, if you only had dog and cat, they would all be classified under like the cat category, I guess. So I would see it. If you only had 2 mammalian classes, I could see it. Plus the cats are technically like carnivores, where they're more omnivores, dogs, right?
Wild, unhinged dogs. Dogs on steroids, smaller but more street smart dogs,
we're putting
and a special group of water dogs that decided they had enough of the nonsense
skunk in the dog category?
Of the dirt world, and we're gonna take their chances out in the ocean.
Sure.
Results have been varied. But you also have another family known as the Mustelidae squad, and they were kind of in a weird spot. They weren't the biggest,
the family.
Definitely weren't the fastest, not the smartest, and for the most part,
they're just silly guys.
Meaning they rarely have a numbers advantage.
They're all
like only real.
A majority of every single animal in here are all like territorial and like offensive animals. For their size, like these are not big animals, but they're all spicy animals. This whole tree of animals within the class are all spicy.
The option was to overcompensate
they all
the way
defend.
Anyone that overmatched would, with violence and borderline crackhead courage. If mustelids like honey badgers ran in groups, they probably wouldn't need the personality of a power tool to survive. Because gang violence may be unethical, but in the wild, it's a way of life. It's the reason African wild dogs are one of the most efficient groups at canceling life subscriptions. Because team play is high-key underrated.
You work at a team.
The best few social insects in the game, and it's almost scary how well they work together.
But I do really like insects.
Weight class as a mouse, ant society is built on a hierarchy where everyone has a job. Female ants are workers who can have tasks such as cleaning the eggs and feeding the larvae. Queen ant's job is to supply the ant census with new bodies by constantly spawning eggs, and some species can spit out over 800 in one day. Male ants have one job, and this is to supply the whole ant family is crazy.
The way that they function in a team.
They're basically walking ejac packets. And if you ever wanted to know just what ant society is like, the Ants Underground Kingdom is a simulation strategy game with millions of players already online.
Get that bag, Casual Geographic. Get that bag.
Including rare ones like the Banshee ant, which is based on an actual insect
I can start my own ant army?
Type of wasp. You can also unlock new buildings like Toxic Fungi, Gorgeous Pearl, Special Nest, and more. Now here's the fun part. The ant armada includes ants.
I wrote a paper on ants.
And carrier ants.
That was one of the insects I picked to write my paper on.
In the form of scorpions and spiders. It's like Game of Thrones, but with
ants.
I
also, this might sound like a foreign idea if you don't like nature and animals. We used to go, we call it like animal hunting, to go watch animals in their natural habitat when I was in Australia. And one of the people I used to go out with to do this, they have like a Instagram ant page. All they would do is find different ants in the wild and photograph the ants and post them. And it was like a hunt to see if we could find a new ant.
Fades with jumping spiders, giant mantises, and more.
It was
you can
kind
choose
of
what
funny,
alliances
but
you want to join, and then
everyone
make friends
has
with
their
players
own
from all
special
around the world.
interest.
And mercilessly backstab them at every turn because there's no church in the wild and hell is not a consequence. Make sure you download the Ants Underground Kingdom. And use the redemption code to cash in on a bunch of benefits the game is offering just in time for the holidays to make sure your army is the strongest one. But if you're a honey badger, the strongest army is always an army of one. Honey badgers could be the mascots of Miralax because they don't
if
ever
honey
give
badgers
them,
work together, then they could conquer the world. Let's be real. They could conquer anything they want.
Cousins and made it theirs. We're gonna get to those cousins, don't worry. But first we gotta talk about what makes honey badgers such a middle finger to the natural order.
Yep.
First is the fact that they're not indestructible, but damage up close. Honey badger skin is tough and resilient, able to withstand bee stings, snake bites, and brutal maulings that would certainly be a game over for other animals. You could even come at a honey badger with a machete, and it could still probably Eurostep any serious injury. There's even reports of these steroid skunks taking down African crested porcupines. The same ones that have about 30,000 good reasons why testing them could be really bad for your health. In really rare occasions, porcupines have crippled the top-tier lions so badly that hunting humans was their only option. In 1965, after a lion nicknamed the Man-Eater of Darajani was finally put out of commission, it was discovered that it had been gored by a blade beaver, with one of the quills being lodged in its fractured teeth and another one nearly piercing its brain. Maimed and out of options, a starving
you see
lion
that
put
too, like,
one...
I don't know if you guys watch veterinarian videos. You probably don't, because they're not the prettiest videos to watch. But you see that too when dogs come in after like biting a porcupine or getting attacked by a porcupine. They'll have needles stuck like within their jaw and their nose and everything. So I could only picture like the damage it does to a different animal as well.
One Kenyan on a t-shirt. That's the kind of carnage porcupines are capable of, yet honey badgers can often survive an encounter with one thanks to their tough skin. The same reason they can square up with snakes and then live to try again. Honey badgers are menaces that have been known to turn deadly serpents like the puff adder and even the black mamba into
just casually taking on mamba. I love it here.
Honey badgers are immune to snake venom. They're not immune, they're much more resistant than other animals, but enough penetrating bites can flatline even a honey badger. But usually if a honey badger is wounded by a venomous snake, it'll just pass out in an almost coma-like state, only to get up a few hours later and walk it off like a Sunday morning
Imagine being able to just walk it off.
Another fact is that not only is honey badger skin tough, it's incredibly loose, especially around the neck.
Look at his face.
So if one's ever being mauled by a big cat, this walking cigar can turn around while being attacked and deliver smoke directly to the face. Honey badgers are furry Duracells, and anything short of a round directly to the skull isn't guaranteed to kill them. This durability is why honey badgers are either brave enough or stupid enough to blatantly steal from top predators, and they usually target leopards. Unlike lions and hyenas, leopards are solitary assassins that hide their prizes high up in the branches where they can't get their pockets picked. The food may be safe from lions, but they're not safe from a malicious equality symbol with nothing to lose. Honey badgers will risk it all by attempting to steal from a leopard by climbing a tree once it steps away from its meal.
I love how they're just casually like, this is just a casual act of taunting a leopard, basically. Because a leopard puts it up in the tree to prevent other species from grabbing its food. And then the honey badger is like, I don't care what you're doing. I'm going after your food. And he's just like casually taunting the leopard. And I love it here.
Throw a loud temper tantrum, hissing and screaming as it backs away. A method I'm sure they got from their close cousin, the wolverine. The wolverine is a honey badger on PEDs, built for the freezing tundra of the north. And even though they're roughly in the same weight class as a medium-sized dog, tankier predators like bears and mountain lions will occasionally pay food taxes to this walking vibe check.
The walking vibe check.
Is they have the strength and speed to catch their own bodies.
I would be scared seeing any of these in the wild. You know what? Wolverine, honey badger, any of them.
Trees just so they can wait for the right moment to pounce. But why waste the energy or calories doing that when you can just pickpocket a grizzly or clutch a 2v1 versus wolves? And just like the honey badger, wolverines will attack anything with a pulse. Difference is they have the tools to actually stop it. One wolverine put a polar bear in a headline after clamping its vice grip jaws around the struggling bear's throat until it suffocated. There have even been reports of a wolverine dropping a female moose by ripping at its shoulder blades until it eventually...
A moose? Oh, baby. You know how big frickin' moose are? Oh my gosh.
In comparison, honey badgers have allegedly KO'd units like the Cape buffalo and water buck. Except the honey badger's methods
and buffaloes are crazy.
Different. Wolverines are little man syndrome, but with bear trap jaws.
That's wild.
Even though they might not have superhuman healing powers, they do have rotated teeth. Wolverines are equipped with upper molars rotated 90 degrees inward, meaning they can easily eat a grizzly bear's leftovers, even if it's half frozen. That dental plan is why a wolverine will eat every part of an animal right down to the bones. Honey badgers don't have nearly that kind of power, but these prison-striped weasels do pack a nasty bite, and they've been seen tearing into tortoises. Wolverines have one more secret, and it's that they smell really, really foul. Not only will they use the power of liquid booty as a threat, they'll spray the scent over any food they find to make sure no one else touches it. Which is why the wolverine is also nicknamed the skunk bear. Honey badgers also weaponize
I mean,
their south
spraying
side.
your stink over your dead prey or whatever, your dead catch, probably deters anyone around it because they think it's a bad and or decaying and or, like I said, gone bad or whatever. So it's
Threatened
smart.
or just annoyed, the honey badger will reverse its anus inside out and release a liquid so
That's
vile it can
crazy.
suffocate anything near it. In fact, the smell is so offensive it can temporarily paralyze
So no one
attacking
wants to be
bees.
friends with the
It's
honey
not hard to
badger.
see how the skunk
Confirmed.
bear and the felony ferret pull up to the same family reunion. But you can RSVP the otter to the same function. Otters are considered the
otters
most
are freaking
intelligent of all
devious as
mustelid,
well.
and they're a part of the rare group of animals that are able to create and use tools.
I freaking love them though, but they're
This one's
devious.
using a vending machine. In fact, they're so smart that in the 60s, the CIA allegedly tried to weaponize them. I actually made a video on this in an otter report that was created on my TikTok, so definitely go check that out. They're also an
Imagine having a weaponized colony of otters, and that's what you use them for, bro.
in that they're one of the rare social mustelids, which should give you mixed feelings. Because yes, sea otters will hold hands while sleeping so they don't float away. Despite my lack of emotion, I find that adorable.
Freaking wild.
But otters, especially river otters, will jump anything that enters their territory from caiman to jaguar. If you want your idea of otters to be completely slaughtered in 10 seconds, Google otter and attack and count how many
they are
articles you get.
adorable.
A pack of 20 nearly took a man off the Singapore census permanently. A group of rogue otters drowned a woman's beloved dog as she could only watch. Once upon a time, a monkey wandered into the otter hood of the Bronx Zoo, and the outnumbered monkey paid the toll for his transgressions with his soul. That's really
That's like, okay, not talking about otters, but I remember doing like public talks, and I had to be like, oh, like make sure you stay like 10 feet away from like the water lines in Croc Country, like Croc County. And then people would be like, why? Like, why do I have to stay away from the like water line? And I was like, bro, I don't think I need to explain why you need to stay away from the water line when you're in Croc County, because the crocodiles live there and you do not see them in the water. And I was like, bro, like, it's just your general safety.
I already have an entire video dedicated to the carnage society lets otters get away with, but one fact should really hammer the point home. Sea otters have a violent mating ritual that involves biting his partner's nose pad so hard that he can tear it off while occasionally holding her head underwater. That is not the disturbing part, because frustrated male otters that couldn't find a mate will resort to taking their lack of options out on baby seals. Something they'll continue to do for up to a week even after the seal's soul has already evacuated. I mean that in the worst possible way. So in a weird twist, out of these three, otters might have the lowest morality, but to compensate they have the highest intelligence.
Heck
Don't think
yeah.
honey badgers are just some crayon eaters. They're incredibly smart too. Like the kind of smart that would make them high-class criminals.
Yeah, I was like, they're in their
honey badger
own little
couldn't reach a
class
box
of
of
smart.
food that was hanging from a branch of a tree. But what would have been a dead end for most animals was only a challenge for him. After a few seconds to carefully weigh his options, the honey badger proceeded to push his prey closer to the hanging box to the point where he could stand on it to claim his prize. It might not seem like much, but being able to figure this out automatically puts honey badgers in the highest percentile when it comes to animal intelligence. But the best example would be this little guy named Stoffel. Stoffel was a well-known escape artist that would find some of the most creative ways to end his bondage. In one of his many escapes, Stoffel noticed a broom that had been left near him, dragged it over to one of the corners of his enclosure, leaned it against the wall, and then used it to emancipate himself.
We were allowed to keep anything in the koala enclosures up against the wall for that to happen too, because koalas love, as you guys know, koalas love climbing. And so anytime we used the rake or the shovel or anything, we had to make sure it was like laying on the ground, or else the koalas would climb up in the same way that honey badger just did.
Tested his skills with a gate, and Stoffel the Black Air Force managed to undo the latches of the lock.
At least, I do not think the koala would be able to unlock his own gate, but he would be able to crawl away.
Stoffel dug up a bunch of rocks, and when he had enough, he piled them in a corner, and Andy Dufresne himself. One night, his caretaker awoke to a burglar in his home at 1 a.m. You know where I'm going with this.
Imagine getting...
Stoffel escaped again, only this time he broke into the farmer's house and even tried to get into his bedroom.
Bro, I want to look into this story now.
Stoffel was hand-raised by humans at a young age and imprinted on them, meaning Stoffel had no intention of actually escaping. Nah, he was just doing it for the sport and for all the memes. We know that because Stoffel would allow himself to be caught and returned back to his enclosure just so he could figure out another way to make his caretakers earn their pay. Breaking into the farmer's house past midnight was just grade A.
That's crazy.
And of course, it would be criminal to not mention that time Stoffel escaped his enclosure and entered the lion's den where he was nearly brutally mauled to death. After he recovered, the first thing Stoffel did fresh out was try to find a way back to the lion's den.
If he escaped, why wouldn't you try and put them like in a better enclosure?
Where he would harass staff and help himself to any food he could find.
Oh, because he just harassed everyone.
Thinking that would help him calm down.
I see the problem now.
As they would now try to escape together. For their size, honey badgers have relatively large brains, and they make it everyone's problem. But there's one more thing about them that really makes...
Imagine thinking your male honey badger is like upset and this is why he's acting out. Like he's not acting out, he just is probably bored and wants to go do anything else, and that's why he's escaping. And then you're like, oh, to fix this, let's give him a female badger. And then you give him a female badger and they're like, let's break out together. And you're like, wow, that didn't fix anything.
Makes them a menace to society. And for that, you have to look at its third cousin, the stoat. The stoat is one of the smallest of all mustelars, yet they regularly put prey 10 times their size out of commission. They do this by relentlessly chasing their prey, which are usually rabbits, until the prey eventually drops to exhaustion. Only then will the stoat deliver a devastating bite to the back of the skull. And once a stoat locks in on its target, there isn't a force in nature that can stop it. An efficient way to do it. The stoat is so hyper-fixated that it'll even ignore rabbits that might be closer just so they can commit to pursuing its original target.
They like the chase!
Determination is not foreign to the honey badger. The only way a honey badger can fend off leopards, hyenas, and even the occasional lion is by constantly squirming, hissing, and biting until the attacker eventually decides it's not worth the calories. Even if they eventually do go out of commission, you can be sure the honey badger
Get him, honey badger! Kill him!
The badger's stubborn nature is probably best summed up when you see what they do for honey. Honey badgers love breaking into beehives to eat energy-rich honeycombs. Unfortunately, that often means demonic getting a face full of African bees, which are more aggressive and more nasty than their European cousins. But these honey weasels will continue to eat even while being actively swarmed and attacked by bees. Even though they're resistant, they're not 100% immune to bee stings. Honey badgers have been known to keep raiding the same beehive for honey until they eventually get stung to death. But honey badgers don't care.
I was like, dude, they do not care. They'll sit here forever.
This willpower is how 2 honey badgers stepped to 6 young lionesses and still managed to survive.
Honey is pretty good.
At one point, the honey badger found itself in the jaws of death, only to use its loose skin to turn around and bite the lion back. This leopard tried harassing a young baby badger, only to end up cosplaying as a cheetah once Mama Badger inserted herself into the conversation. Speaking of cheetahs, honey badgers have such a reputation that it's widely believed that cheetah cubs evolved to mimic their coloring to avoid confrontation with predators. A whole predatory cat, and evolution forced them to impersonate an African bush weasel just to get more respect. Hell for cheetahs, but another notch on a honey badger's chastity belt. I say chastity because they don't give a f. With the strength and durability of a wolverine, the intelligence and morale deficit of an otter, the pure coke-fueled willpower of the stoat, the honey badger is the only thing alive that can make a bull cat intimidating. I want to see him do like a video about like ferrets. And that's gonna do it for this video.
He could make a banger video about ferrets.
If you want to support this channel, my Patreon's gonna be in the description.
I would love to see that.
Also like the video or suffer a honey badger vasectomy. Other than that, drink water, hug your parents.
I hope you guys learned something about honey badgers and our stouts and our wolverines and our anything else in this video, as well as thank you guys for watching the video. You can go check out more content over on my Patreon. We are reacting to Devil May Cry, The Apothecary Diaries, and solo leveling over on my Patreon. So if you want more react content, go check that out, link down below. And if not, I will catch you guys all on the flip side. Have a wonderful day, and thank you so much for watching. Take care, gamers, and goodbye.